Okay, so before toilet paper became this boring little roll sitting next to your toilet, Rome had a solution that sounds like somebody in a meeting said the worst possible idea and everyone else just nodded. A sponge on a stick. And I know, your brain is already trying to protect you from the image. Mine too. Historians do argue about this thing. The famous version is that Romans used it to clean themselves. Some researchers think it may have been more like a toilet brush. I am saying that up front because I can already hear the comments. Actually, the xylospongium, fine, yes, thank you, Professor Bathroom. But either way, the object is still a wet sponge stick in a public latrine, so Rome is not walking out of this clean. The question today is pretty simple. If I dropped you into the ancient world and said, sorry, you have to use the toilet here, where would you rather be? Rome, China, or Japan? That is the whole fight. Forget the palace tours for a second. After lunch, who is treating you the least badly? Welcome to the ancient toilet war. Let's start with Rome, because Rome is always doing this thing where it looks unbelievably advanced, and then 2 seconds later you realize something is deeply cursed. The Roman public latrine could be a stone room with a long bench, and the bench has holes cut into it. So you sit down, and then another guy sits down next to you, and then I guess you both just pretend this is a normal social situation? I don't know who decided bathrooms needed community energy, but Rome really committed to it. And to be fair, the engineering part is not a joke. Some public latrines had drainage channels, some connected to water systems. Waste could move out of crowded city spaces instead of just sitting there, making everyone's life worse. For the ancient world, that matters. So yes, the plumbing deserves respect. I can admit that. I just cannot understand how the same people who figured out all this stonework and water movement looked at the seating arrangement and thought, yeah, perfect, no notes. Then the sponge stick shows up, and the whole scene gets impossible to defend. If it was a wiping tool, I hate it. If it was a toilet brush, I still hate it. Less, but I am not exactly relaxed. There is no version where I walk into that bathroom, see the communal wet stick, and think, civilization. Rome is impressive, basically. It is also the place where I would be whispering, can we please invent a door? China is a very different story, because China brings in the object that every modern person immediately understands. Paper! And no, this does not mean ancient China was secretly full of soft 3-ply toilet rolls. Please do not picture that. But paper existed in China very early, and by the late 6th century, we have a Chinese writer mentioning paper used for toilet purposes. That one detail changes the whole emotional temperature of the episode, because if I am standing there choosing between leaves, stones, cloth, wooden tools, water, and a sponge stick that has seen too much history, and then somebody says, hey, we have paper, I am listening. Later on, it gets even more specific. In the 14th century, records describe large-scale toilet paper production in China. The imperial household even had special sheets made for them. Imagine being so powerful that somewhere in the palace, a person has to care about your toilet paper logistics? That is not the kind of power they put in movies, but maybe it should be. China also has this elite toilet engineering angle. At the Yueyang site in Xi'an, archaeologists found a toilet structure from roughly 2,400 years ago with ceramic pipe parts that may have worked as a manual flush system. Manual flush means somebody pours the water. So, amazing for the person using the toilet, less amazing for the person whose job is apparently bucket-based customer service. And this is the important caveat. Palace or elite technology does not tell us what life was like for everybody. Most people were still dealing with ordinary, ancient life problems. I don't want to turn one fancy toilet into a fake picture of the whole country. But if we are talking about this specific bathroom battle, China has two very strong cards: paper and some elite plumbing ideas that are much more advanced than you expect. Japan is interesting because it does not feel like it is trying to win a beauty contest. It feels like a place asking, okay, what actually works? In some Nara period urban settings, toilets used narrow drainage streams. You squat over flowing water, 1 foot on each side, and the waste moves away. Is it glamorous? No. Does it sound better than making eye contact in a Roman bathroom? I mean, yes. I am sorry, Rome, but yes. Then we get to cleaning, and yes, there are wooden sticks called Chugi. Another stick, of course. Ancient humans really saw the bathroom and kept answering with carpentry. But Japan's bigger move is what happens after the waste leaves. Human waste, often called night soil, could be collected and used as fertilizer, which sounds awful until you stop thinking like a modern person for 2 seconds. Farmers need soil that can keep producing food. If nutrients leave the farm and never come back, eventually you have a real problem. So as gross as it sounds, the logic is there. Japan is looking at the whole loop. Food goes in, waste comes out, farms need nutrients, and somebody has to make that cycle work without modern fertilizer. I do not like saying the toilet connects back to dinner, but that is kind of what is happening. So if you force me to choose, I am not choosing the place that looks best in a painting. Rome probably wins the painting. Big stone room, water channels, empire confidence, very strong we know what we are doing energy. Then you sit down and a stranger sits next to you, and suddenly I have questions for the entire government. Japan is the one I respect more the longer I think about it. The drainage idea is practical. The fertilizer logic is practical. It is not glamorous, but ancient life usually was not glamorous. It was mostly people trying to solve problems without pretending they had modern options. But China is the one I would personally pick, because paper is not a small detail. The final step matters. You can have the grandest bathroom architecture in the world, but if the ending involves a suspicious stick, I am out. So yeah, my winner is China. To be clear, I mean a narrow win. I am not saying ancient China had modern bathrooms. I am saying in this ridiculous contest, paper is such a huge human upgrade that it beats a lot of bigger looking technology. Rome still deserves respect for the engineering, even if the social setup makes me want to leave immediately. Japan feels practical in a gross, farm brain kind of way. And honestly, I get it. I end up picking China because at some point, the object in your hand matters more than the empire around you. So next time ancient history starts sounding too noble, too clean, too marble statue serious, just remember, all those people still had to go to the bathroom. And in that particular arena, the emperor with toilet paper is a very, very hard final boss.